Hello there. In 2020, we were ordered to stay at home, but the cost was and will continue to be colossal. Yes, some lives were saved, but according to a new study, they were a drop in the bucket compared to the staggering collateral costs. And one wonders if this particular study will find its way into Baroness Hallett's health emergency inquiry. But it gets worse than that. Could this be used as an argument to get the UK government to sign up to the WHO Global Health Emergency Response Treaty? On the basis that the UK government fouled the whole thing up and can't be trusted again. That next time we need a full globally controlled response with no one doing their own thing. Now, this latest study was conducted by Johns Hopkins University and Lund University, where they examined 20,000 studies, each looking into the actions taken by governments around the world to protect their people. And looking at the first wave, they said that the draconian measures used had a negligible impact on mortality and they were a policy failure of gigantic proportions. This new study estimates that during the first wave, only between 1,700 and 6,000 were saved in England and Wales. And across Europe the figure was 6,000 to 23,000 saved, while in the US it was 4,000 to 16,000. While an NHS study shows that there was an excess of 5,000 deaths of men with prostate cancer alone during the pandemic. 20% of which were caused by the bug, the other 80% were not, with the numbers tripling in the first year alone, and that's just one illness. And there are 7 million people on the NHS waiting list right now, a record high. The report also says that during a normal flu season, we tolerate 72,000 deaths. And cases of mental health problems just about doubled, especially amongst the young adults during those 2 years. As far as this study's researchers are concerned, the stay-at-home orders had negligible public health effects when measured by mortality. And I remember the public lambasting and cancelling that the dissenters got, even the expert dissenters, the people who should have known, the people who did know. The authors of the report also said, "For those who value liberty, our findings will be sobering, if not depressing." And they went on to say that the government responses to the health emergency had led to some of the greatest infringements on personal liberties under peacetime conditions in history. In the final analysis, these infringements generated negligible public health benefits while imposing a set of massive costs on society. Now, the measures they say did work were covering our faces. They were seen by the report as the most effective. Second was closing down businesses, then closing down schools. But counterintuitively, limiting the size of gatherings and cancelling public events had the opposite effect, they claim. The reason given that because people were not allowed to meet in the open, they met in secret indoors instead, so increasing the risks. Maybe we should all have been told to get out and about as much as possible. But the business closures are still happening now. According to The Guardian, pubs are being pushed into bankruptcy by landlords demanding full rental back payments for the health emergency period, when most pubs were either closed or seeing massive declines in footfall, and therefore their takings took a massive hit. And it is claimed that the courts are finding in favour of absentee super-rich landlords, while the Tory government looks the other way. Now, one thing I didn't see was any mention of the effectiveness of increased hand washing, something that was initiated right from the very start. Maybe that had far more effect than it is given credit for. But one study did say that the responses by individuals to the risk were 10 times more effective than any of the measures taken by government, i.e., everyone's own internal risk assessment system kicked in, and people naturally and automatically responded in their own way. And the study's authors have said that as more data emerges, we should be looking at mandated measures against voluntary responses and comparing their effectiveness. Other effects of shutting the country down for so long have been children's education and the over 120,000 ghost children that have not gone back to the classroom. And there's a massive backlog of court cases. And the general effect of things like furlough payments being added to the national debt. And it has been a large upward pressure on inflation, part of our cost of living crisis that is hitting everyone on the planet. What this report claims is that 2 weeks to flatten the curve and save the NHS that became 2 years to flatten the economy did far more damage in terms of mortality and finance than the health emergency itself, and that the effects of it are going to ripple on for quite some time into the future. But what worries me is that as more and more data emerges about this, our government is looking more and more likely to cede our national sovereignty over such issues to the supranational WHO. And if the WHO, in its wisdom, concludes that this report is erroneous and that stay-at-home orders work, then as the international health arbiter, whose pronouncements must never be challenged, then we face more of them going forwards. Are we really going to see our politicians just roll over on this one? Would they really absolve themselves of future responsibility over our health emergency responses? You bet that bunch of lazy, spineless, self-interested bunch of Westminster blobbers would. The last thing they want to be doing is hand-wringing over such stuff in future. Far easier to let someone in a distant place send them a fax telling them what to do, and many of them got really used to that before they got a rude awakening with Brexit. I reckon they will welcome shedding such a responsibility and shedding all the subsequent blame for anything that goes wrong as well. These elected representatives say they want to serve the people and make decisions on our behalf, while at the same time sloughing off the responsibilities where they can. And remember, it's not just in the health arena, it's also in defence, where the UK government has decided to entangle us within the European Union's military permanent structured cooperation arrangements. Our politicians don't want to serve us, they want to get paid by us, while slavishly obeying the incoming EU and WHO fax machines. It's so much easier for them. Do as they're told by rubber stamping whatever comes through, and then say, "Not my fault, it was orders from above," when it all goes wrong. We mustn't let them get away with it. But they will sign up to these things if given even a hint of a chance. And if the Tories don't manage it, Labour certainly will, especially if they need Lib Dem backing. Now, if this hasn't been decided by the time of the next general election, just look for a throwaway line in their manifestos that talks about ensuring we have robust procedures in place to combat any future health emergency. And you'll know exactly what they intend to do. But sadly, I don't think we'll have to wait that long. The wheels are already well in motion.